The problem now isn't bullets, it's water. The people you see aren't looking for a fight anymore. They're just looking for a way to survive. They're hungry, thirsty, and angry. When hunger, thirst, and anger come together, it turns into chaos. In Tehran, the center of the country, the situation is felt even more. A city that should be orderly and modern. But now it's in the middle of a crisis, and this isn't happening in just one place. The problem has spread to different cities like Kerman, Isfahan, Mashhad, and Hamadan. And it's getting even worse in Tehran itself. But before we continue, please like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much. Millions of people are no longer staying silent. They are fed up and angry at the government. And what's worse is that it's not just because of the war. A big part of it is due to their own mistakes, shortcomings, poor leadership, and negligence over many years. The most shocking thing of all is that a country with missiles and the ability to show strength abroad is now struggling to provide water to its own people. There are even reports that they are now relying on help from other countries just for supplies. In many cities, a lot of faucets have already run dry. Not water, but just air. On the streets, you can see people carrying water jugs, rushing and pushing each other just to get something to drink. You no longer see lines for food, but lines for water. This is where the real collapse begins, not because of bombs or missiles, but because of the most basic need of people. And while this is happening inside the country, the soldiers outside also feel the effects. The supply is severely lacking, and there are reports that only 20 bullets are available for every 2 soldiers. This isn't enough even for a short battle. This means that the enemy isn't their only problem. They're also facing their own shortages. At this point, there's something the military fears even more. It's not just airplanes, not just ships, and not just weapons, but water. Because without it, people can't survive. And if people can't endure it, neither can the soldiers. As the battle intensifies, they become even more trapped. The supply is dwindling, and the problem is becoming clearer. What they call the 20-round crisis is a sign that the supply of ammunition and equipment is under strain. But even though that's already tough, it's not the worst yet, because an even bigger problem is coming. The soldiers no longer have enough of the basic necessities. There are reports that in some areas, the soldiers no longer have clean drinking water and are lacking food. On top of that, they're also running low on bullets. In other words, they're losing all the essentials they need to fight all at once. On the 12th day of the battle, an army numbering in the millions is slowly starting to give in. And it's not because of a direct attack from the enemy, but because of hunger and thirst. In this condition, it's hard to stay strong. When a soldier is tired, hungry, and thirsty, their ability to fight and follow orders decreases. This is not a matter of courage, but of the physical limitations of a person. At the same time, the water problem across the country is getting worse. This is now one of the biggest crises they are experiencing. The dam that supplies Tehran has dropped to less than 6%, which almost means that the remaining water is about to run out. Considering the size of their army, this becomes even more serious. The Revolutionary Guard has around 190,000 members, and about 350,000 are in the regular army. In total, the number exceeds 500,000. The problem is, there isn't enough water for such a large number. In a real battle, soldiers don't just need bullets, they need water every day. With the heavy equipment they carry, the exhaustion, heat, and stress, every soldier needs enough water to survive and function properly. Usually, a soldier needs about 15 to 20 liters of water each day. This is used not only for drinking, but also for cleaning, cooking, and preventing illness. It's not just people who depend on water, it's also needed for vehicles, for cooling equipment, and for medical use. If you think about it, with over 500,000 soldiers, that amounts to millions of liters of water needed every day. In a normal situation, this is sourced from wells and city water systems. But now the flow is disrupted and the supply is lacking. This is where you see the real situation. In war, people often think that bullets are the most important, but in reality, it's water that determines whether you can keep fighting. And when that's gone, No matter how big the army is, it will slowly fall. Without electricity, where will you get water? During war, one of the first things hit are the power plants. When the electricity goes out, the effects follow one after another. The pumps will stop, the wells won't work, and water purification will cease. Even if there's still water left, it can't be delivered to the cities and camps. This is where the big problem becomes clear. Iran's plan is to prolong the fight and wear down the enemy over time. But there's one question they can't escape. How can you last if you don't have water? In this situation, Iran can't support long battles. They'll be forced to find other ways, like bringing in water using tankers. But it's not that simple. They'll need thousands of tanker trucks along with the vehicles already carrying ammunition and fuel. That means the load gets heavier, sometimes even 2 or 3 times as much as needed. And that's where it becomes dangerous. Water tankers are big, slow, and easy to spot. They are one of the easiest targets. When a tanker gets hit, it's not just a simple vehicle loss. An entire unit could lose its ability to fight within a day because of a lack of water. Its effects are felt faster than hunger. Dehydration can bring the body down in just a few hours. Pilots lose focus, operators have trouble thinking, and soldiers quickly become weak. No matter how trained or tough a person is, the body has its limits. Without water, discipline, or courage can't overcome that. Within a few days, more serious effects will appear. The body can give out, thinking can be affected, and you may no longer be able to move properly. In the end, Iran is not just facing its enemies, it also has to deal with the condition of the place and the lack of water. In this battle, it's not just weapons or plans that will decide the outcome. Sometimes the simplest things like water determine who will last. And if you lose there, no matter how big your army is, you still won't be able to fight properly. Before, dams were one of Iran's most important defenses. This is where water and electricity come from, and it's a big help in daily life. But now, the situation has turned around. Most of the dams are almost empty or just filled with mud. This means that even if the structure is still there, it doesn't serve much purpose anymore. When these are hit during war, only 2 things can happen. If they're full, it will cause flooding and even bigger problems. But if they're almost empty, you won't benefit from them either. Even the remaining dirty water will be completely gone. Along with this, the electricity also goes out. Because the water level is low, hydroelectric power drops. And if the power grid gets damaged in the war, the electricity supply will be completely lost. If that happens, the water treatment plants will stop operating. This means that even if there is water, it can't be purified, and it won't be safe to use. And the first ones to be affected by this won't be the soldiers, but the people inside the city. That's where the problem will start. People become thirsty, chaos breaks out, and people start taking sides. And when things are chaotic inside, the battle outside is affected too. No army can fight properly if their own country is in chaos. There was a clear sign of this when the energy minister, Abbas al-Yabadi, appeared in the media. He said that they are ready to buy water from neighboring countries. In a country with missiles and a nuclear program, this means a lot. It's almost like admitting that they can no longer meet their own needs. It's even more surprising who they asked for help. One of those mentioned is Afghanistan, which is now under the Taliban. This means their position in the region is declining, and it's becoming clearer that their problems are not just external enemies. What's even more serious is that there are reports that evacuation is being discussed in some parts of Tehran. Imagine that. The capital itself might be abandoned. At this point, it's no longer just about war or weapons. This is a fight for the most basic needs of people. And if you lose there, no matter how strong you are on paper, you'll still fall. How do you evacuate a city with millions of people? Think about it. 15 million people need to be moved all at once. The immediate question is, where will you take them? You can't just move them to another city, because even places like Isfahan, Yazd, and Kerman are already dealing with water shortages. That means wherever you take them, resources will still be lacking. If this happens, it's not just a simple relocation of people. It will become a major crisis, something that rarely happens on this scale in modern times. Because of this, people are losing trust. Some are saying that it won't be missiles that kill them, but the lack of resources and the mismanagement of their own government. Something like this has happened before in Khuzestan. There were riots because of water. Government buildings were stormed and pipes were destroyed. But for others, that was just a preview of something bigger that could happen across the whole country. This is a nightmare for the military, especially for the IRGC. They have to face the enemy outside. But at the same time, millions of people inside are angry and complaining because of the water shortage. They are facing two problems at the same time. One is a battle outside and the other is chaos inside. And in this situation, they have to choose where to allocate their remaining resources. While they haven't fixed the water problem, it's like they're gradually making their own situation worse. Every day, it gets worse and comes closer to the point where it can't be controlled anymore. This is where the weakness shows. Even though there's already a warning, the problem isn't fixed right away. And the truth is, the solution isn't easy. A major change is needed in the way water is used in agriculture and in dams. But there are obstacles. There are groups that profit from the current setup. Because of this, they don't easily change the system, even though they know it will cause bigger problems. In the end, it's not enough to say that this is simply a lack of rain. Its roots go much deeper. This is not just because of nature, but the result of decisions that were neglected over the years. And now the very system that was created to support the country is slowly becoming the reason for its downfall. This is no longer just a simple drought. We know how drought works. When it rains, the water returns and the situation slowly goes back to normal. But in Iran, it's different now. This is no longer temporary. This is a continuous depletion. According to reports, every year Iran extracts about 63 billion cubic meters of water from underground. But nature can only replenish about 45 billion. That's a big deficit. Almost 20 billion cubic meters are lost every year. How do they make up for this? They take it from the future. This means they're using now the water that should have been for the next generation. Water that has accumulated underground for thousands of years is being depleted in just a few decades. To make it easier to understand, it's like a soldier who runs out of bullets. Because he has nothing left to use, he breaks down his own fort and uses it for defense. In the end, he has no more bullets and nowhere to hide. The situation just gets worse. According to the latest data, the dams across the country are only at about 35% capacity. In Tehran, it's even more critical, a city with more than 15 million people. But 4 out of the 5 main dams are only between 6 to 10% capacity. At this level, the remaining water is almost useless. It's often mixed with mud and dirt, and it's very hard to clean. Sometimes it really can't be used anymore. The government is trying to reduce water usage by closing schools, closing some offices, and lowering the pressure in water lines. But the effect is only temporary. When you look at satellite images, the reality becomes clearer. Reservoirs like Lachian and Karaj, which used to be full of water, are now almost dry and look like deserts. In the end, this is no longer just a simple lack of rain. This is the gradual depletion of supply. And when it's completely gone, rain alone won't be enough to bring it back. This is where things become most dangerous. When a country can no longer provide water, especially to its own capital, that's when things start to fall apart. When the taps in the capital stop working, it's clear that there's already a deep problem. And now Iran is getting close to that point. At first glance, it seems like climate change is the only reason. But that's not the whole truth. There's a deeper source of the problem. Behind this is the IRGC, or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They are said to be the defenders of the country, but they also played a big role in the current situation. In 30 years, they have built more than 600 dams. At first, this seems like good news. But many of these projects were not properly studied. Some lacked proper assessment, And there are even reports that the data was inaccurate. Why was this done? For profit. Many companies connected to them benefited from these projects. The Gotvan Dam is a clear example. It was built on the Karen River, on top of an area with a lot of salt underneath. Even before it was finished, engineers and geologists had already warned that the location was dangerous, but the project still went ahead. When the dam was filled, the salt underneath dissolved and mixed with the water. Because of this, the water became extremely salty, almost saltier than the sea. It wasn't just the project that was wasted. Even though a large amount of money was spent, the water was not useful. Worse, that water was even used on farms. Because it was salty, hundreds of thousands of hectares of land were ruined and many trees dried up. There were even experts in Iran who said it was like the country destroying itself. This is where the irony can be seen. While the IRGC claims they are protecting Iran against its enemies, they themselves caused major problems with the land and water. So it's clear that this is not just a simple natural disaster. It's not just because of the heat or lack of rain. This is the result of wrong decisions, poor planning, and wrong priorities. And the most dangerous of all, in history, water shortages are one of the quickest ways to ignite public anger. Because the truth is, people can live without freedom, but they cannot live without water. This is the warning that can no longer be ignored. In recent years, uprisings have already started in Khuzestan, a province rich in oil but lacking in water. From that alone, you can already see where the situation is headed. People are blocking water tankers, destroying pipelines, and burning government buildings. This is not a simple protest. This is a sign of broader anger that is steadily growing. And it's important to remember that this isn't the worst yet. It's like this is just the beginning of a much bigger problem. This is where the government is struggling. The IRGC is used to facing enemies from outside and dealing with political issues. But the situation now is different. How do you deal with millions of people whose problem is thirst? No gun can answer that. No matter how much force you use, it won't increase the water supply. Instead, it only makes people angrier. It becomes more dangerous when the IRGC is forced to focus its strength inside the country to control its own citizens. When that happens, the guards outside will be reduced and the defense will weaken. Little by little, it will be attacked. The whole country's functioning will be affected. And here you can see the bigger picture. It's no longer just about missiles, the nuclear program, or allies. There are more basic things that are more important: water, food, and the condition of the land. Think of Iran like a castle. On the outside, the walls are strong and high, but the foundation is weak. It's like sand that's very dry and soil that's full of salt. When the water is gone, the foundation will collapse, and no matter how strong it looks, it will still fall. Right now, many things are hitting Iran. The sanctions are affecting the economy, and there are attacks disrupting their systems. But among all of these, the most serious is the water shortage. This is what's slowly destroying the country from within. This isn't new in history. Many armies have been defeated because of thirst, and many nations have fallen due to lack of water. And the truth is, you can't fix this with anger or by fighting with other countries. In the end, no matter how powerful your weapons are, if you don't have water, you have no ability to fight. Inside the cities, this is already starting to be seen. There are places that have water and places that don't. When this happens, a gap forms between people. Those who have money can buy water. Those who don't have money are forced to wait or look for where they can get water. This is where a deeper problem starts, because water, which should be a basic need for everyone, becomes like a product for sale. It now has a price, and there is control over who can get it. As time goes by, the gap gets bigger. It's not just about money, but also about the ability to live properly. It's not only the body that gets tired in this situation, but also the mind and emotions. And when people have had enough, that's when more intense reactions begin. It's no longer just simple complaints or protests, but actions that are hard to stop. Along with this, people's trust in the government weakens. Because in their minds, if they can't provide water, what else can they provide? And when it reaches this point, No explanation or promise is enough, because the problem is something they experience every day. This is not just a theory or something in the news, but a reality they feel every day. With every day that water is scarce, a bit of trust is lost as well. And when it is completely gone, that's when the real downfall begins. Not because of enemies from outside, but because of the loss of support within the country. In the end, this is no longer just a fight for water, but a fight for the stability of the entire country. And if this is not resolved, a simple shortage can become a crisis that can no longer be controlled. At this point, it's clear that the problem is no longer just about weakness or shortage. The situation is even more serious than that. The IRGC, to be honest, is not just struggling anymore. It's like they've already lost a battle they can no longer control. And this fight is not like a war you can go back to or turn around. Once the water is gone, it doesn't just come back. How bad is it? It's not just bad. It's almost impossible to restore it to its former state. There was a climate scientist who said that the water supply in Iran is only enough for about 50 million people. But their population is approaching 100 million. That means there are twice as many people as the water can support. They are trying to support more people with a resource that is gradually running out. In this situation, it cannot be sustained for a long time. Because of this, the government was forced to make a decision they never expected before. They are gradually reducing farming to save water and are relying more on importing food from other countries. In other words, they no longer fully rely on their own production. When a country relies on others for food, there are consequences that come with it. Even if it's not stated directly, it gradually gives up part of its control to other countries. Because the truth is, importing food is like importing the water used to produce it. But the problem doesn't end there. As the lakes dry up, a large amount of salt is left behind. When the wind blows, it carries the salt into the air and people end up inhaling it. Because of this, lung diseases and other health problems are increasing in some areas. At the same time, when the supply of something as important as water becomes scarce, the dynamics of society also change. There are reports that some groups are controlling the sale of water, turning it into a business with its own prices and methods. This means that as the normal supply disappears, unregulated players come in. Overall, this is no longer a simple crisis that will just pass. This is a gradual change that starts with nature, reaches society, and affects the very state itself. And when it reaches this point, it's hard to bring things back to the way they were. And there's another effect that isn't immediately noticed. When there's a shortage of water, even services weaken, hospitals struggle, and there's not enough clean water for patients. Schools have a hard time. Sometimes they're forced to close. Even businesses are gradually affected because they can't operate properly. When all of these come together, the entire country slows down. The economy weakens. Some people lose their jobs and social problems increase even more. This is no longer just a single issue. It becomes a chain reaction that's hard to break. Over time, it becomes clearer that this isn't just about if there's still water today. The question is if there will be any left tomorrow. If it completely runs out, it won't just affect the present, but also the next generation. This is no longer a problem that can be fixed right away. It's not just a single decision or a simple plan. It needs time and continuous action. But with each passing day, time and the remaining resources are also running out. And in this situation, the question isn't if there's a problem, but when it will finally collapse.